It's that time of year where we need to sit back, review all of our rosters and our fantasy portfolios, and make sure that we are not left holding the bag on a player as the offseason progresses. Let's dive into 4 must-sell players in the offseason. Welcome back to the Dynasty Daddy YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we are going to go over 4 sells that if I had on my roster right now, I would be looking to at least move or shop them around. Not every player is a sell at any cost, and I'll make sure to specify that. But these are some players that, to me, their value just doesn't fit in my brain. To me, it just doesn't make sense. So I want to kind of talk why I feel this way about certain players and figure out what moves I would be looking to make with them. If you like this content, please consider supporting the channel. We are pushing towards 1,000 subs. It's a goal of mine for this year, so it's completely free and helps me out. So definitely do all the like, comment, subscribe, and let's get on into it. First up is breakout running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bucky Irving. He kind of came out of nowhere. Not really, but last year's running back class was rather weak, and Bucky Irving, a 4th-round pick for the Tampa Bay Bucs, really came on strong towards the end of the year. Having a 42% rush share, he had an 8.7 target share, which is incredible for a running back, 12.7 opportunities per game, and 1 point per opportunity, which is one of the best points per opportunity out of any running back in the league. Currently, he sits at RB8 on Keep Trade Cut and on ADP Daddy. ADP Daddy is built off of real drafts on my site, dynastydaddy.com, but we use over 40 million draft picks to build updated daily trade values. So Bucky Irving is really shot up the board and has a lot of hype around him. A lot of people believe in the talent. He looks good on tape when you watch him. So I'm not sitting here saying he's a must sell. Like, you got to get rid of him at all costs. But he's starting to give me shades of like CJ Stroud last year, where things looked really good. It's hard for me to say a running back like Bucky Irving is someone that I want to invest RB8 value in. So that's kind of my approach to this. I have a couple shares of Bucky Irving, and I am going to be looking to see, is there some tear down opportunities? Not because I don't believe in Bucky Irving or what I saw, but more of from a value perspective. People want him. Is there a way I can kind of extract that value, tear down maybe 5 spots to an RB16 and pick up an extra first or something like that? So I got a few trades that I would be interested to move Bucky Irving for. First up, we got Bucky Irving in the 2nd for Kenneth Walker in the 1st. I don't really care about Kenneth Walker per se, but just the theory of taking a Bucky Irving type player that has a little bit of hype, probably a tiny bit overvalued, and being able to split him into Kenneth Walker and a 1st-round pick with a bunch of that future value. That's something I would be looking to do. Ideally, I wouldn't want to have to also give a 2nd, but if it gets something done, that's okay. I mean, to me, I could see Kenneth Walker scoring pretty much just as well as Bucky Irving next year, and banking a future first gives me a lot of options to tier up, especially in a league like this where I'm only starting 7 players. I'm going to be trying to look, is this an early pick, or can I use that pick to kind of consolidate to a truly elite player? That would make a huge difference. Next up, this is kind of a messy trade, but Bucky Irving, Dallas Goedert in a 3rd-round pick for Jordan Addison in the 1st. It is a late first, but the way this draft looks, you're probably going to get a pretty decent running back at the 112, and you pick up a young wide receiver. This is another great way of splitting. I mean, Goddard in a 3rd don't have a ton of value, so this is kind of like a similar type deal where you pick up a first, you pick up another player that has value, and then you kind of toss in some throw-in pieces, borderline roster clogger, old tight end, and then you also throw in that pick. So these are the types of deals I would like to do if I can get potentially split Bucky Irving for two shots at high-end assets, because I think he has that value makes it worth it. Here's another good trade, I would say. Bucky Irving, the 104, and Joe Mixon. I mean, in what world do we see Joe Mixon not scoring Bucky Irving? More than one, right? There's a chance that definitely happens next year. Joe Mixon looked really well, looked really good, still under contract, all of that. And then you add in a high-end 2025 pick. That could be, a Hampton, anyone that also gets a ton of hype. So to me, these are the types of deals I would be looking to make. I don't think Bucky Irving is by any means a bad player or someone I don't want on my roster, but there's some people that are starting to get a little, get a little ahead of themselves. If I can take advantage of the hype, all of that, that's something I'm looking to do, because Bucky Irving definitely towards the end of the year just went on a tear. Next up is leader in rushing touchdowns for last year with 15, James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. This one, I'm much more confident in selling him. And there's a few things I would say why, right? The first thing's he led in rushing touchdowns, right? He also doesn't have a new contract. And with this new 2025 class, I'm not saying the Bills won't sign him, but I also could see the Bills not signing him and then him going, if he goes to another offense, I don't think he's like a Barkley type or like a Derrick Henry that you're missing something truly elite. He's a above average running back and got a lot of goal line work, which is great. But I'm not, too high on him in terms of being that long-term elite guy like a McCaffrey that can go to a different team and make a big impact. If we look at some of his stats, last year he had 15 rushing touchdowns. That's a big standout. First in rushing touchdowns. He had 13 rushes a game and 1.12 points per opportunity, which is, again, that's very high for a running back. 46.9 rush share, which is still rather low for a running back that finished that high, and a 8.2% target share. I think for me, I could see Buffalo taking another running back in this draft as well. It's very loaded at running back. And his value, to me, will never get higher than this. He currently sits at RB9 on Keep Trade Cut and RB11 on ADP Daddy. So people are still seeing him as a RB1. And given his age, given how long he's been in the league, I think this is a perfect sell high situation. Just because running backs, especially after they've been in the league for a couple of years, don't really break into that top echelon of running backs. You have to either be like a Barkley or be a Gibbs or Bijan, elite young prospect to be truly like a valuable dynasty asset. If anyone is willing to take a bite on James Cook right now, that's a great time to get out. So let's take a look at some trades. First up, I know we keep throwing out Joe Mixon, but I think veterans plus a pick is one of the best moves you can make in the offseason. James Cook for a 2027 first-round pick and Joe Mixon. I mean, the reality is, like, Joe Mixon is probably going to score pretty similarly or better than James Cook next year, and you add in a 2027 first. Again, it's hard to lose when you're gaining that much value and you're splitting one piece into two pieces. If Joe Mixon flames out, it's like, well, I still have a first. And everyone's, every 2027 first is apparently Jeremiah Smith. So, yeah, everyone's getting hyped about that. And so you could easily sell, especially as we hit mid-2026, and people start seeing 2027 is not like 4 years away. Next up, James Cook, Romeo Doubs, kind of, throw in a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, pick up Devonta Smith in an early second. Early seconds, I think, are probably one of the most undervalued pick in 2025. Lots of running backs in this class. So that's going to probably be a pretty decent young running back that people like. Pick up a wide receiver, Devonta Smith. I'm a huge fan of this, especially in a 12-team start 10 or start 11. You need to start a lot of people, and you're probably going to get 2 decent starters out of this. And last trade is James Cook in the 210 for a 104. People are starting to lose some hype on these early-ish picks in the 2025 class, which I get. But if I can take just a James Cook and say, hey, I want a Hampton, I want a Caleb Johnson, I want a Ted McMillan, or whoever's at the 104, sign me up. Those rookie picks have a high chance of being valuable. And I want to get them even if people don't think they're going to be valuable. I mean, people said the same thing about the 2022 class, and we still got Garrett Wilson, Olave, a bunch of other players that had value and had elite value for some times that you could actually flip. So just because James Cook had a good year this year, don't miss out on a chance to sell high on him. Next up is Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Commanders. He had a breakout season at the age of 29. He currently sits at wide receiver 27 on Keep Trade Cut and 24 on ADP Daddy. So that low-end wide receiver 2 range. He finished second in touchdowns last year. So similar logic to a James Cook, where you have this older guy that finishes high in touchdowns, gets his value bump because he just performed really well. That's something I'm looking for. But second in touchdowns with 21% target share, 2.17 points per opportunity with 6.7 opportunities per game. That's a little bit lower than other top-end wide receivers, but something that was interesting to me when looking at everything is he currently is the most valuable wide receiver over the age of 27. So think of all those vets out there that do produce pretty well. he's still worth more than that. And that's just frankly, like, when you get to that age, what matters is your production. So to me, someone that produced really well above that age range, I'm looking to just kind of cash out where I can. You know, is he going to get 13 touchdowns next year? Probably not. Would I rather have Tyreek Hill? Probably. I mean, Tyreek Hill has more baby mamas than Terry McLaurin had touchdowns last year. To me, Tyreek Hill is the only guy over that age range that is worth the price of admission, because we can see he puts up those really crooked numbers where Terry McLaurin did really well, but I think it's a great time to cash out on him. So here's a trade that I saw. It's kind of a lot, but we see Benson, Kelsey, Terry McLaurin in the 109 for Brian Thomas Jr. in the second. Brian Thomas Jr., obviously elite breakout star, and you kind of get rid of Kelsey, Benson, the 109. There's a lot in here, but to go and get a superstar locked in young guy, especially if this is more of like a contending team flipping for a rebuild, this is a pretty decent move in my opinion. And like I said, I think those middle second round picks are going to still be able to get some value at the running back position. Next up, Terry McLaurin in the third for the 105. Again, bank it. This dude is 29, right? The farther people away are from the playoffs and Terry McLaurin doing really well, people are going to be like, oh wait, he's old, I don't want him. If you can cash it out for the 105, I would. And here's another one. Terry McLaurin, Jared Goff, and a 26th first-round pick for Tua and Brian Thomas. Again, Brian Thomas has this elite value price that you have to pay. And then at start 11, I kind of like the Goff-McLaurin side. Depends the rest of the team. Mainly because the first. I don't like giving up an extra first on top of this package, but sometimes you got to if you're going to go get that elite-level player. I see a lot of trades where Terry McLaurin's kind of this throw-in piece. I think McLaurin plus the first opens up a lot of avenues for you to trade up and get that Brian Thomas tier of player, which frankly I don't agree with, but that is a move I would be looking to make. Can I take Terry McLaurin with his hype from last year and just kind of sell and get someone that is a little bit more of a cornerstone piece of my team long term? Last up, we're diving into the dumpster. Noah Gray, tight end for the Chiefs. Currently, he sits at tight end 22 on Keep Trade Cut and 25 on ADP Daddy. This is the big thing for me, right? We look at his stats; they're not elite, they're not crazy, right? 8.2 target share, 2.5 points per opportunity, but only gets 3 opportunities per game. And he was tied for 8th in touchdowns, which is a little bit high given his usage, but that's fine. That offense is loaded. The question for me is I feel like he hasn't done a ton. He's been in the league for a while now, and 2025 has a pretty loaded tight end class. So I could easily see the Chiefs bringing in some competition there. Just the way I look at it, there's going to be nonstop conversation about Travis Kelce retiring all year. And the reality is all that's going to do is boost Noah Gray's value to where I'm going to say, I'd rather just cash out now. I can always buy back in if I need to. To me, Noah Gray hasn't done anything that makes me feel confident, and I could totally see during the draft the Chiefs drafting that true Travis Kelce replacement because there's a lot of talent in this tight end class. Let's take a look at a few trades. So first up, Noah Gray. If I can get a second and then another player, right? I think a Whittington is a sneaky buy, especially if Cooper Kupp's out of there. That team, the Rams need a lot of other pieces, and Whittington showed some flashes, and as long as Stafford is there, I feel pretty confident that he's going to have at least some sort of valuable usage. Not the most exciting trade, but again, can I take Noah Gray, who probably doesn't have value on most days, get some sort of value that I can use elsewhere? Here's another trade. He's not going to probably be a cornerstone of a major trade, but he could be a good throw-in. And here's an example, right? Zay Flowers, a second, Noah Gray. You get Joe Mixon, DK Metcalf, right? Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf kind of cancel out. So you can take a second in Noah Gray, pick up a Joe Mixon who's going, was it RB10 last year? It's still going to probably have some sort of role. Lastly, a big trade here. I like this one. 110, Noah Gray, turn it into a roam. Again, we saw this with JSN. Don't write off a guy that has the high level investment that a roam does. Roam would be RB or wide receiver 1 in this draft class pretty easily. So to me, can I use Noah Gray as kind of just a free second, right? Can I use him as like a second-ish or like get someone to bite on the hype of Noah Gray? Because the reality is he's probably not going to be anything special. And if he is, I can always buy back in without really, losing that much. Anyway, that wraps up my 4 sells that I have right now in the offseason. And this is something, I've been thinking about. The upcoming class has a lot of people like shitting on it, but a lot of people also hyping it up. And I think the thing that I want to get ahead of is the running back and tight end draft class, especially because both those positions are pretty loaded. And I've heard from people, that there could be 30 plus draftable running backs in this draft class. So to me, when I look at what I need to do to protect some of the value I have on my roster, it is kind of taking some of those guys that I don't know if they have a locked in elite level role and just splitting them, covering as many running backs as I can in tight ends like that. As if they don't have a locked in role, I do think they could be disrupted. And that's kind of why I put players like a Bucky Irving or something. They have so much value right now, but if the Bucks bring in some hyped running back prospect, Bucky Irving's value is going to take a dip. Doesn't mean his production will in the season, but his value will. That's when you buy in. That's when you buy in. But right now, everyone's steaming him up as like the next Jahmyr Gibbs or something. And to me, that's the time when you sell. So let me know if you agree with me or not. If you haven't subscribed and you made it this far, consider subscribing. It's free, helps the channel out a lot. And also check out dynasty-daddy.com. We got a lot of cool things going on over there. And I'll catch you next time.